Hi, we are group number 7, which consists of me, Fanil Patel, Curtis Baker, Griffin Sarah, and Robin Gordon. Today we are going to present to you a case analysis of Chipotle Mexican Grill Company Food with Integrity. Next slide, please. During this case analysis, we will cover the following topics: company overview, problem identification, strategic analysis, alternatives, recommendation and implementation, and conclusions. Robin will now present the company overview of our case analysis.
Chipotle Mexican Grill is a chain of fast casual restaurants specializing in foods such as tacos, burritos, bowls, and salads that are made to order right in front of customers. Its menu also offers tortilla chips, sodas, a variety of chips and tea drinks, as well as organic milk. Chipotle's mission statement is simple yet effective: food with integrity. Food with integrity is their commitment to finding the very best ingredients raised with respect for the animals, the environment, and the farmers. It means serving the very best sustainably raised food possible with an eye to great taste, great nutrition, and great value. Food with integrity is a statement that embodies Chipotle's stance on the importance of using animals that are naturally raised in happy, healthy, or favorable environments. The company prepares its food using whole, unprocessed ingredients with the use of added colors, flavors, and other additives. This is because Chipotle believes it is important for people to know exactly where their food came from. For example, they receive 100% of their pork from naturally raised pigs from producers who can meet their strict guidelines. The company currently operates its restaurants across the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, France, and Germany. At the time of this case, restaurants were operated from the United States, Canada, and England. Additionally, at the time of this case, Chipotle's headquarters were located in Denver, Colorado, and now their headquarters are located in Newport Beach, California. The company has roughly 3,129 restaurants in the United States and 53 located internationally as of 2022. As of 2012, the company had 1,316 restaurants located in the U.S. There were 37,310 employees recorded at the time of this case, and as of 2022, there are now 104,958 employees. Chipotle was a favorite amongst both Wall Street and its customer base since the time the company was founded. Stephen Ells worked to create a business in which all of their animal byproducts were naturally raised, and this was proven to be an effective strategy. In 1993, Mr. Ells founded Chipotle as one of the first chains of fast casual dining establishments. 3 years later, in 1990, Stephen Ells graduated from the Culinary Institute of America in New York City. After graduating, Mr. Ells moved from San Francisco and worked as a chef, where he noticed the popularity of taco shops. He was inspired by both the freshness of ingredients and the pace at which they could serve customers. Mr. Ells opened his first restaurant in Denver, Colorado by using an $85,000 loan from his father. He believed he could reinvent Mexican food. His vision for utilizing high-quality foods in a fashion that felt like the customer was at a dinner party proved to be a success. By 1998, Mr. Ells had independently opened 16 restaurants and sparked the attention of McDonald's, which made an investment in Chipotle, further fueling its growth. By 2005, Chipotle had opened 500 locations with McDonald's $360 million capital infusion. Shortly after, the company went public, and in October 2006, McDonald's sold its holdings in CMG for $1.5 billion. During October 2012, two events occurred that presented Chipotle Management Group with management challenges. One, a hedge fund manager made criticizing comments about Chipotle at a conference in New York City, noting that food prices were rising and there was an increase in competition. For example, Taco Bell's expansion under Cantina Bell. As a result, CMG's stock price fell by more than 4%. Another management challenge that Chipotle faced was that after the third quarter earnings release, analysts picked on CMG's slowing down of same-store sales, even though overall results reported were positive. As a result, the stock went down nearly 12% afterwards. As of 2012, CMG owned and operated 1,316 restaurants, mostly in the United States. The 2011 fiscal year reported revenues of $2.27 billion, net income of $215 million, employment of nearly 30,000 hourly workers, and roughly 2,600 of salary employees. Based on what we've seen in the case analysis, we believe Chipotle is a leader in the industry, both financially and environmentally.
Thank you, Robin. In our cases problem identification, the first problem we identified is dependency on the limited number of suppliers for its main ingredient, which comprise of chicken, pork, and beef. Chipotle Mexican Grill depends upon a limited number of suppliers. When it comes to quality, the focus of the entity lies upon the integrity, yet it led to major controversies such as outbreak of E. coli in 2015. Second problem we identified was high sodium content. Chipotle is known to have high sodium content in its food, which can lead to high blood pressure. Another problem was poor food safety. In 2018, more than 1,000 people became sick after eating at Chipotle's burrito restaurant. Chipotle was sued for violating food safety and agreed to pay $25 million in April 2020 to resolve charges, and is the largest fine ever handed out by the US Justice Department in a food safety case. This is a major problem identification since customers are hesitant to eat in restaurants linked to outbreak of foodborne pathogen illnesses. Third major problem is over-reliance on the US market. Chipotle has 3,129 restaurants in total. Most are located in the US, with only 53 restaurants outside of the United States, including 43 in Canada, 6 locations in United Kingdom, and others in France and Germany. Depending mostly on the American market is risky. Any challenges in the market can have a significant impact on the company's bottom line. Another problem is growing competition. The growing competition in the Tex-Mex business may pressurize Chipotle and have negative implication over its share of the market. The next problem was loss of customer trust due to foodborne illness. Chipotle went through a series of health-related incidents regarding from norovirus to Escherichia coli to salmonella outbreaks, sickening hundreds of customers in several states. As a result, many customers stopped dining at the Chipotle. The company has been plunged since 2015 from the food safety scandal, which is evident from the declining in their sales in 2015-2016 revenue figures. The next problem we identified was challenges of attracting and retaining employees. Due to growing demand for dining in restaurants and further strengthening of the overall economy, the labor market is struggling and is identified as being tightened as a result to bring in new coworkers. One day, hiring binge was being conducted by Chipotle Mexican Grill. If we talk about supply chain problem, due to the implication of strict policies associated with feeding and raising of animals, hundreds of Chipotle encountered difficulties in their supply of pork. The not franchising may also inhibit revenue growth. Robin will now start the strategic analysis section of our case analysis.
Okay, to the general environment. The general environment are factors that are external to an industry and usually beyond the firm's control, but will affect a firm's strategies. The effect of these factors can vary across all industries, and every industry has to anticipate the effect of these factors for its long-term strategies. We decided to discuss the socio-cultural and economic segments in regards to Chipotle. The sociocultural segment. As discussed within this course, sociocultural forces influence the values, beliefs, and lifestyles of a society. These forces can enhance the sale of services and products of many industries, and it can also decrease those sales in others, which can lead to a positive or negative impact. We believe Chipotle will fall under the sociocultural segment because the company demonstrates a greater concern for healthy diets as well as a greater concern for the environment. Chipotle shows a greater concern for healthy diets and the environment by ensuring that all of their byproducts are naturally raised, as briefly mentioned earlier. This is demonstrated by serving good quality foods using sustainable farming practices. For example, poultry being obtained from farmers who do not use antibiotics, as Chipotle believes happy animals produce healthier, better tasting foods. Providing the highest quality of raw materials, providing customers with a high quality experience, all while maintaining a trendy culture inside the store, is what demonstrates that Chipotle has a greater concern for healthy diets and the environment. This sociocultural segment of the general environment ties us back to Chipotle's mission, food with integrity. Their commitment to finding the very best ingredients raised with respect for the animals, the environment, and the farmers. So next we'll discuss the economic segment. Economic forces influence all industries. Companies in the fast food and quick service industry operate restaurants in which customers order and pay at a counter. Consumer food service sales are expected to grow most rapidly in Latin America, the Middle East, Africa region, and the Asia Pacific region. The U.S. fast food and quick service restaurant industry includes about 250,000 restaurant locations with combined annual revenue of about $250 billion. U.S. retail sales for food services and drinking places, a potential measure of fast food and quick service restaurant demand, decreased 21.4% in the first 9 months of 2012 compared to the same period in 2011. Consumer spending is highly affected by general economic conditions. Economic conditions that affect customer spending causes a shift in customer priority to their needs for survival. Chipotle also experienced rising disposable income compared to 2008, but increasing food prices.
All right, I'll be covering Porter's 5 forces. I'll start off with industry competitiveness. That is high. The industry revenue will rise to $401.1 billion over the next 5 years. This shows how much competition makes up the entire fast food industry. People have hundreds of options on where they want to eat. With this large choice of fast food and restaurants, Chipotle needs to stay in the minds of their consumers to keep the customers coming in which they have, as they have projected to generate $910.8 million in revenue in 2023. Taco Bell and Qdoba generate less revenue, and the only 2 fast food companies that generate more revenue than Chipotle are Chick-fil-A and McDonald's. Next, I'll go to threat of new entrants. Threat of new entrants is high for single store locations of Chipotle. The threat of entrance is high at the local level. If a popular Chipotle style restaurant opens up across the street, that Chipotle could lose money and start competing. However, that small one-store location is not able to compete with Chipotle on a national scale. Threat of new entrants at a national low. The threat of new companies being able to compete with Chipotle based on the size of Chipotle is extremely low. It would take companies years to gain the popularity and funds to get to Chipotle's size and compete with them. $850,000 of capital is required to run a restaurant the size of Chipotle. They would also have to create lanes of large-scale distribution and create connections with farms to supply their food. Threat of substitutes is high as well. Touching back on the amount of competition we spoke about for competitiveness, the threat of substitutes are high for the same reasons. The main substitute is not a competitor at all, it is home cooking. In the industry of this size, the options are never ending, and home cooking is extremely popular. A survey from the case analysis says that 48% of the money spent on food was at restaurants. 52% was spent to be cooked at home. This makes cooking at home a huge substitute that takes away from a potential business. Their competitors like Taco Bell have put out a menu options such as their Cantina menu in an attempt to gain more customers from their Chipotle counterpart. Qdoba has created a business model that replicated the style of Chipotle and their Mexican food conveyor belt ordering style. Power of suppliers is medium. Chipotle has pretty extreme standards when it comes to where their food comes from. This differs from the norm of the fast food industry. Chipotle's standards have caused them to have more limited options when it comes to getting their produce and meat. Chipotle has created a network of 25 local farms that have decreased the power of suppliers as Chipotle runs them. However, for suppliers for meat that meet the Chipotle mission, the options are more limited given the suppliers have higher power. Power of the consumer is low. The power of consumers is low because Chipotle sets their prices as low as they can to keep their customers happy. For a company that uses healthy ingredients than their competition, them keeping their prices lower than those competitors is extremely impressive and keeps their customers happy. I'll now be doing the VRIO analysis. So for the VRIO analysis, we choose to evaluate Chipotle based on its open kitchen design, skilled workforce, fresh and organic ingredients, low environmental impact, and ability to maintain a great profit margin and spend more on raw materials. The open kitchen design falls under competitive parity. The open kitchen design is valuable as it allows customers to see the food making process as it is happening. Customers can see that the food is not out of a freezer, as Chipotle does not have any freezers. The design is not rare as it has been installed in many other chains such as Moe's and Qdoba. It is not difficult to imitate, and there are substitutes such as the closed kitchen design. The skilled workforce also falls under competitive parity. Chipotle has a skilled workforce because they are cooking their food and not just heating up frozen food. These workers need to be trained on how to work the kitchen and cook the food. It is valuable to have a workforce that is skilled like that. It is not rare. Moe's and Qdoba both have implemented this. It is not difficult to imitate. It just takes time to train. It also has substitutes as they could use frozen foods and workers would just have to heat the food up. Fresh and organic ingredients falls under sustainable competitive advantage. Fresh and organic ingredients are rare in the fast food industry. Chipotle has led the way by all the standards that they've set. It is not common to see fast food chains spend money and take the time to make sure their food is healthy. It also makes it valuable to have these standards as it is good for marketing. People want to eat affordable, healthy food. It is difficult to imitate as it takes time to find a way to get the materials from organic farms to meet the company's standards for the bowls that people eat. It is also much more costly to have organic and fresh ingredients. There are no substitutes. It is either you want to use organic ingredients or you do not. Low environmental impact also falls under sustainable competitive advantage. Chipotle's low environmental impact is valuable to them as they can save money by using renewable energy sources such as solar panels. It is also great marketing to let customers know that you're providing great food without hurting the planet. It is extremely rare in the fast food industry for companies to take the time and money to become environmentally friendly. It is difficult to imitate because it is expensive. It has no substitutes as well. Maintaining profit margins and spending more on raw materials also falls under sustainable competitive advantage. Chipotle's ability to maintain a solid and have the ability to spend more on raw materials is valuable because it gives them the ability to stay organic and healthy without losing money. It is rare in the fast food industry as most companies will get the cheapest ingredients to make the most money. It is difficult to imitate because of how expensive it is to provide organic fast food. It is also without substitutes. And now Curtis will take you through the financials.
This is our income statement. It is one of two documents that we use to determine the financial ratios, which will follow this slide momentarily. As can be seen from the most recent fiscal year-end data, total revenue increased year over year by 14.4% to roughly 8.6 billion, and net income increased 37.6% to 899 million. And restaurant sales increased 26.4%, which was primarily due to increased menu prices and new restaurant openings. We provided 13 years of data because we wanted to show that Chipotle is a company that is true to its mission, which has proven to be very successful. Revenue and net income growth have been consistently steady for most of the reporting periods presented. However, the company did face hardships in 2016 due to the issues with a major pork supplier and concerns over food safety. As a result of these events, the company caught negative attention and the financials were significantly impacted. For example, the first quarter of 2016 financial results showed a $26.4 million loss. And the second quarter presented revenues down 998 million from the prior year. But by 2017, the company had addressed the pork supplier and food safety issues and financial results were stabilizing. One more thing I'd like to address before moving to the next slide is that in 2020, the company experienced a negative 62.2% effective tax rate. The decreased rate was due primarily from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, which increased tax deductions. This modification in law allowed for an increase in net income year over year. This is our balance sheet, our second document that we use to determine the financial ratios, which will follow this slide directly. One of the most notable things we saw on Chipotle's balance sheet is the average working capital for the 13 years presented is about $418 million. This demonstrates that the company does not require significant working capital in order to operate. This is because customers pay using cash or credit and debit cards, and their operations do not require significant receivables, nor do they require significant inventory since most of their raw materials are fresh ingredients. Additionally, Chipotle doesn't have to pay for the purchase of food, beverages, and supplies until after receipt of those items, which further reduces their working capital need. In 2022, the ending cash balance decreased by 16.5% or 177.2 million year over year, which was primarily caused by capital provided for the continued investment in new restaurant construction and stock repurchases. While the company does not fund operations through outstanding debt, long-term liabilities significantly increased in 2019 due to the implementation of a new accounting standard that changed the way companies accounted for operating leases. Instead of running payments for an operating lease through the income statement, companies now are required to book an asset and corresponding liability for the lease term and any renewal periods. This change will impact the leverage ratios we review next. Here we have calculated the financial ratios we've learned in this course based off the information of the previous slides. Let's start with the liquidity ratios. These metrics are important because they demonstrate how quickly a company can pay off short-term obligations. When we start with the time period of our case, which was around 2011, we see that the liquidity ratios are well above 1 compared to the most recent data set, where the company is slightly above 1 for 2 of the 3 metrics and below 1 for the cash ratio. Comparing the 2 time periods, Chipotle's success with liquidity has historically been strong as they've had fewer employees, less inventory and receivables. Additionally, when we compare Chipotle's liquidity ratios to the industry averages, we find that the company typically outperforms the industry. The next set of ratios are the profitability ratios. These metrics are crucial for understanding how well a company is generating profit and how efficient operations are being run. In 2022, a gross margin of 23.9% indicates that 76.1% of revenues are paying for the cost of goods sold. At the time of our case, the gross profit margin was 26%. The change between the two seem reasonable as costs for labor and raw materials have increased over time. Second is the operating profit margin. In 2022, an operating profit margin of 13% tells us that for each dollar of sales, 13 cents are available after deducting cost of goods sold and operating expense. Third, the net profit margin. In 2022, a net profit margin of 10% tells us that for every dollar of income, there are 10 cents generated for the stakeholder. Fourth, we have the return on assets. In 2022, a return on assets of 13% means that for every dollar of asset, 13 cents are left over to generate profit. That yields the last of the profitability ratios is the return on equity. We see that in 2022, each dollar of net income will yield 38 cents to shareholders. The last grouping of financial ratios on this slide are the leverage ratios. These ratios are designed to measure a company's risk. First in this group is the equity ratio. In 2022, this ratio indicates that investors are funding 34.2% of the assets compared to 2011, where they were funding 73.3% of assets. Here we can see the effect of how share repurchases have impacted this metric over time. Next is the debt ratio. Before the new accounting standard for leases was implemented in 2019, we can see an average debt ratio of approximately 27%, but since implementation has jumped to an average of 66%. Chipotle leases a significant majority of their restaurants, which represents the bulk of their liabilities, causing this metric to be inflated. Our next metric is the debt to equity ratio. Here again, we see the impact of leases and stock repurchases. Our last metric for this slide is the equity multiplier. Typically, the higher the multiplier, the higher reliance on debt financing. However, we know in the case for Chipotle that they have no outstanding debt. Their liabilities consist of accounts payable, accrued payroll, unearned revenue, which is revenue associated with gift cards, lease liabilities, and deferred tax income. Here, last but not least, are the financial ratios. We have the DuPont formula. This formula is another way to look at return on equity and is comprised of three formulas: net profit margin, total asset turnover, and equity multiplier. From the time of our case, Chipotle trended up on this metric until about 2016 when they experienced their issues with the pork supplier and food safety. They started to stabilize until 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic all but stopped in-restaurant sales and finally recovered by the end of 2022. For measure, we included the average DuPont formulas for SIC code 58, eating and drinking places. This information was available for fiscal years 2010 through 2021. As we can see, Chipotle has beaten the industry average DuPont formula every year except for 2016. Next will be Fennel to present alternatives.
Thank you, Curtis. The first alternative is Moe's Southwest Grill. Run their business a unique way. They have out of the world name of their food menus. Homebreaker, Fat Sam, Joy Bag of Donuts. The atmosphere at Moe's is also different. They only play music from dead musicians to get people's attention. Focus heavily on customer services. The way they welcome you is different from any other restaurant. They says welcome to Moe's. Also offers healthier food products, which has helped attract new customers. The second alternative is Qdoba Mexican Grill. Very similar business and food, much deeper menu, cannot customize burritos, don't use all natural and organic food items, actually have cook in a bag, cook in the bag cooking food in pans. Similar trendy style, play music inside the store, huge burritos at a big cheaper of a price. Not as fast. Next alternative is Yum brands, for example, Taco Bell, KFC. Focus many of their strategies around marketing. For example, iPhone 8 app, buy, pay more. Fast food restaurant that focuses heavily on customer service try to make service as fast as they can so they can get more money and more customers. Cater toward families by offering bulk dinner packages, cooked meals at home, frozen meals. Griffin will now go over to recommendation.
For our recommendations, we talk in short-term, mid-term, and long-term recommendations and implementation. For our short-term, from a 2011 case analysis perspective, we focus on marketing, and then we want to create a rewards program and an app as well. From 2023 perspective, we want to focus on adding drive-through locations to our already implemented locations. For our midterm recommendations and implementation, a 2011 perspective is a look into sponsoring sports and sports teams, increase DNA testing to identify and eliminate bacteria, more actively oversee the operations for preparing and cooking of pork, chicken, and steak. And from a 2023 perspective, we want to look into expanding international locations beyond Canada, UK, and Germany. For our long-term recommendations and implementation, from a 2011 perspective, we want to focus on increasing diversity in a customer base, increasing our customers into the 28 to 45 age range and 55 plus age range. We want to ensure that our employees are properly trained on food safety as well. From a 2023 perspective, we want to focus on applying the Chipotle business model to other cuisines, which may assist in international growth as well. We want to reduce our sodium content, and we want to create a career path for store employees to increase retention rates. We also would like to consider franchising in order to increase revenue growth without the use of company cash.
Okay, so in conclusion, We have learned that Chipotle is one of the first chains of fast casual dining establishments that provides high-quality Mexican food at a reasonable price with a conveniently short waiting period. They use naturally raised animals for their meat and place great emphasis on the quality in the production of all of their products and services. Chipotle's mission, Food with Integrity, is their commitment to finding the very best ingredients raised with respect for the animals, the environment, and the farmers. It means serving the very best sustainably raised food possible with an eye to great taste, great nutrition, and great value. The main competitive advantages that separate them from competition are not only that they have naturally raised meat, but also a unique flavor of high quality. Since revenue growth is dependent upon new restaurant construction, Chipotle must expand the brand into new cuisines and international markets. This would conclude our presentation.